Cyberpunk 2077 reviews are flooding in as we speak. Right now, one of the highest scores for this game is on Metacritic with a score of 91, which is probably enough to appease most fans. And yet, this entire review situation has been a little bit strange, if you ask me. Now, I'm not talking about that there's going to be probably something that's going to be knocking the score down, but there are a number of points about what you've been reading in current reviews that should probably go understood up front. So these are going to be three things in particular that I really think you guys need to understand, especially if you're going to be reading the reviews. And then at the very end, I'm going to give kind of a fourth one as a bonus because it's my own thoughts and opinions about the whole situation. So let's go ahead and get started with the three things that you guys need to know and understand up front about the Cyberpunk 2077 reviews. Now, before we actually get started, if you guys are enjoying these videos and want to continue seeing these types of videos, make sure that you guys go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe down below. It does help me out a lot and is greatly appreciated. But if you guys want to make sure that you guys are sharing these videos with everyone that you know and everywhere that you possibly can, because as the channel does grow, eventually I want to be able to do giveaways here on the channel. So if you guys want a free copy of Cyberpunk 2077, then you already know what to do. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on right now. Now, the first point that I want to be able to go over here in today's episode is the state of the patching on reviews copies are very, very unclear. And what do I mean by that? So many of the reviews that are being sent out and that are being received, even the extreme positive ones, have a huge, and I repeat, a huge amount of bugs happening in Cyberpunk 2077 in its current state. Now, before we go on and move and talk about anything else about that, even look at some of the stuff that has been leaked. If you guys have been lucky enough to see any of the leaked footage prior to being taken down, then you guys will know that there are some issues with the game itself. Now, that is prior to a day 0 or a day 1 patch that has been in the works, and we briefly talked about this in a previous episode, so just bear that in mind. But there are some mixed reports on how similar the review build is and how the final product will actually be. Now, some reviewers are saying that they didn't get the day 0 or the day 1 patch for the PC version of it, but others are apparently saying that they remember seeing a huge file that was told that it would eliminate a lot of these bugs and fixes with that patch. So it's kind of anybody's guess. You know, we got some reviewers that are saying, no, we never got a day 1 or a day 0 patch, but then we got other reviewers that are saying, well, we did get something, or we remember seeing something, but we don't know what it was. So there's a lot of toss-up with what's being said on some of these review articles. The other thing that I quickly want to mention is, from what I can tell, it's only being the PC version, or is what is actually being reviewed on any of these game sites, so just bear that in mind. And I know that there was a couple companies that were trying to get their hands on a review copy for the console versions, whether it be the Xbox One, PS4, PS5, or even the Xbox Series X, but they have not yet received one. And there's actually a couple of the reviews that have said that they have blatantly asked and have gotten no response back from CD Projekt Red on getting Cyberpunk 2077 for the consoles. So basically, in short, it is not clear if some of the worst bugs in the game, particularly towards the end of the game, will carry over into the final product, or if there will be more significant fixes out in time for its launch of December the 10th. Now, moving on to point number 2. So all the footage that is currently in the review videos is actually considered B-roll footage. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, let's go over that here in just a moment. While there is plenty of Cyberpunk 2077 cinematics and game footage out there already, anything you see in the video reviews to this point is considered B-roll stock footage, which is one of the stipulations of the review that has actually been said by CD Projekt Red, as it actually turns out. Now, I am actually going to read something from a Twitter account by somebody that actually did a review, so I'm going to physically be reading this segment. So if I make a mistake, I do apologize, and I'm not going to let you guys know who it was because it promotes another YouTube channel, so I do apologize for that, and I really don't know who they are. So I have finished a Cyberpunk 2077 review, but I did not have a review up until today because I could not comply with the CD Projekt Red embargo requirement that prohibited us from using our own recorded footage for our reviews. Instead, we are told to use B-roll footage, which is basically trailer footage, etc., etc. So, I mean, that's a good point to actually point out here, even looking at some of the stuff that has come out. And even IGN and some of the other companies probably had to make sure that they stayed on par with this, because they can't, at this point, with all the things that have been happening with the leak footage and whatnot, the CD Projekt Red had to be as careful as possible. And, you know, if they were told that they needed to use B-roll footage, then that's what they had to do. So basically what this means is that reviews could only really, quote-unquote, talk about the types of bugs that they were actually experiencing and seeing in the game. Like we mentioned before with the guy on YouTube that couldn't necessarily show his own gameplay. They're not able to show them alongside with their reviews in the video, because that actually goes against what CD Projekt Red guidelines were, especially for a review of the game prior to its release. Now, I do believe that the actual gameplay videos can be lifted sometime tomorrow, so prior to the actual release of Cyberpunk 2077. So that will be the first, and I mean real look at some of the gameplay footages as recorded videos are being released with the reviews, so we can clearly see what is truly happening in Cyberpunk 2077. Now, this brings me to my third and final point that I want to make in today's episode, which I briefly kind of talked about it just a little bit ago, and that is how the game plays on all of the different consoles is completely unknown. Now, every single review copy of Cyberpunk 2077 has been for the PC only. That may be its largest platform up for the game, but it kind of leads me to wonder if on launch, how the game will perform, especially on the last generation consoles like PS4, the Xbox One. But that also doesn't really tell us what the PS5 and the Xbox Series will be like, because, well, we just really don't know how the game performs on that, except for the people that accidentally got the copies. But you also have to keep in mind that those people, the games haven't been properly patched, technically. So this is a spot that I want to basically be able to read a quote that was put on Twitter by somebody. Again, I'm not going to mention their names, but this is what he says. Personally, I think it's kind of weird that one of the biggest video games of the year is going to be coming out this week, and absolutely nobody outside of the people making it have played it on a video game console version yet. And to me, that just seems a little odd. Yeah, you're right, it does seem a little bit odd. So Cyberpunk isn't the only game that has ever come out with PC-only review copies, but it does put console players in a little bit of a kind of a strange and precarious spot. Will the game run well enough to be passable on the last generation consoles, even though technically it was designed for that in mind because it was supposed to be released months ago? But how is it actually going to see an improvement on the next generation consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X? We just simply don't know as a player group at this time. We don't know until the launch, unfortunately. We do know that we've seen some video leakage, and I mentioned this just a little bit ago, from the people that accidentally received their own copy. But again, I want to reiterate this, that it has not been properly patched because they haven't received the day 0 or the day 1 patch as of yet. And this brings me to my fourth and kind of bonus section of today's episode, and that is, don't always rely on what you read, especially when it comes to the review copies. You get to be your own critic in this case, and you guys get to critique the game however way that you want. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you need to post a video on YouTube about it, but you can post your comments down below if you guys would like, because honestly, I would like to get your thoughts and opinions on what you guys think about the game, especially when it's launched. I plan at some point to do a review on the game. It won't be for at least probably 30 or 40 hours into the game, because I want to be able to experience it the best way that I possibly can. But even at that point, it won't even give me enough time to understand all of the different life paths that are available to us, because at that time, I probably will only have gotten through the game once, if at that point I even have, because I love doing everything on the side. But that's just me. But anyway, that is everything that I wanted to go in today's videos. But basically, to wrap it up, I don't think that any of this information would significantly change any of the game's review scores out there. If anything, I would have to say that if the day 0, the day 1 patches fix actually these bugs at the launch date, then I think that these scores could technically get a little bit better, but that's just me. But if you guys did find this video helpful or entertaining in any way, then make sure that you guys go ahead and drop a like, comment, and subscribe down below. It would help me out a lot and is greatly appreciated. But until next time, YouTube, you guys keep doing what you're doing because you're already doing it, and you guys stay gaming.